Accusations and counteraccusations mount regarding Brett Kavanaugh's nomination, Ted Cruz is run out of a restaurant, and President Trump visits the UN, i.e. Mos Eisley. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Hey, well, I'm back, and I'm very excited to be here. I mean, I was out for 2 days, and apparently the world exploded, and then I returned this morning, and things were just as bad. I mean, Michael Avenatti's making all sorts of trouble. Lots of parties happening all over the place. Plus, Ted Cruz gets run out of a restaurant. We do have a lot to get to here today. I'm going to get to all of it in just a second. But first, let me tell you about Birch Gold. So here is the situation. Right now, our national debt, which is money we owe other countries and unfunded liabilities that we owe to ourselves, it's greater than the entire economic output of the United States. If your entire life savings is tied to the US dollar, ask yourself, what is your plan for hyperinflation if the stilts should fall out from under the economy? Well, this is one of the reasons why you should be at least a little diversified. You should have some of your money in precious metals, because precious metals do, in fact, hedge against inflation. They hedge against uncertainty. They hedge against instability. Gold is a safe haven against all that stuff. My savings plan is diversified, and yours should be too. Go check out Birch Gold Group right now. They have thousands of satisfied customers, countless five-star reviews, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. What's your plan? Well, part of it should be Birch Gold Group. You all know about Birch Gold's free information kit, but for a limited time, qualified purchases can earn up to an additional $10,000 in precious metals for free through September 30th. To find out if your purchase will qualify, contact Birch Gold right now. Go to birchgold.com/Ben. Speak to a Birch Gold rep. Mention I sent you. That's birchgold.com/Ben. Do it now. The offer only runs through September 30th. Terms and limitations do apply. Ask your sales representative for details. All right, so a lot breaking this morning. Michael Avenatti has now come forward with his bombshell accusation. And this is one of these accusations where it's either true or it's false. And if it's true, it shouldn't be all that hard to prove, because the witness who Avenatti is bringing forward is claiming an enormous number of people who should have seen this going on, who should have seen the events going on. So here's what's happening. The precursor was that Michael Avenatti, over the past 48 hours, while I was out, announced that he had a woman who was willing to come forward and testify that Brett Kavanaugh was involved in a gang rape ring. Okay, that was legitimately his words. So Avenatti wrote Sunday in an email to Mike Davis, quote, who's the chief counsel for nominations for the Senate Judiciary Committee, "We are aware of significant evidence of multiple House parties in the Washington, D.C. area during the early 1980s, during which Brett Kavanaugh, Mark Judge, and others would participate in the targeting of women with alcohol/drugs to allow a train of men to subsequently gang rape them." He says there are multiple witnesses that will corroborate these facts. Each of them must be called to testify publicly. Now, it is worth noting that Michael Avenatti has, in the past, come up with some credible accusations, i.e. Stormy Daniels, and in the past he has made some non-credible accusations. So, for example, he claimed that he had a DVD of Trump engaged in sexual congress, and he suggested there were 3 other women he was going to bring forward who'd been paid off by Trump, and done any of those things. Evidence to support such an accusation would surely upend Kavanaugh's confirmation, which has already become a Chernobyl-like political disaster for the White House, according to Vanity Fair. In reality, it is not, in fact, a Chernobyl-like political disaster for the White House. The polls don't show any impact on Trump, on the 2018 election, nothing. Okay, but Michael Avenatti today, he finally comes out with the accusation. So first, he was accused of getting this story from 4chan. So the 4chan pranksters decided that they were going to accuse Avenatti of picking up on some rumor that they had put out there, essentially for fun, in order to harm Avenatti. Avenatti denied all that, and he came forward and he said that his client was going to come forward within 48 hours. This is clip 11.
Well, Rachel, I'm representing one client who I can describe as a witness and victim, as well as additional corroborating witnesses to what she is going to allege publicly within the next 48 hours. As it relates to her particular allegations, we're not going to provide additional information beyond that.
So Avenatti was acting kind of suspicious in the run-up to the release of this. For example, he began protecting his tweets, which is unusual for a guy who has said that he wants to run for president in 2020. He also then released the sworn declaration of a woman named Julie Swetnick, and he tweeted out a picture of her and said, here's her name, here's her picture, please respect her privacy, which is a very weird way to ask for somebody's privacy. In any case, here is her declaration. It just came out this morning. Quote, "My name is Julie Swetnick, and I am a resident of Washington, D.C. I fully understand the seriousness of the statements contained within this declaration. I have personal knowledge of the information stated herein and have called to testify to the same, would and could do so. And then she names off all of the places that she has worked before. She says that she has worked for places including the Department of the Treasury and the Internal Revenue Service and the U.S. Mint. She held inactive security clearances with the Department of State and the DOJ. She says, I first met Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh in approximately 1980 to 1981. I was introduced to them at a house party that I attended in the Washington, D.C. area. I observed Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh as extremely close friends during the early 1980s when I knew them and interacted with them. I would describe them as, quote, joined at the hip, and I consistently saw them together in many social settings. There's no question in my mind that Mark Judge has significant information concerning the conduct of Brett Kavanaugh during the 1980s, especially as it relates to his actions towards women. Following that first introduction, I attended well over 10 house parties in the Washington, D.C. area during the years 1981 to 1983, where Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh were present. These parties were a common occurrence in the area and occurred nearly every weekend during the school year. On numerous occasions at these parties, I witnessed Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh drink excessively and engage in highly inappropriate conduct, including being overly aggressive with girls and not taking no for an answer, which is kind of vague because you don't know what that means. Then she continues, this conduct included the fondling and grabbing of girls without their consent. Now remember, she's not claiming she's one of these girls. She's saying that she witnessed this sort of behavior. She says, I observed Brett Kavanaugh drink excessively at many of these parties and engage in abusive and physically aggressive behavior toward girls, including pressing girls against him without their consent, grinding against girls, and attempting to remove or shift girls' clothing to expose private body parts. I likewise observed him to be verbally abusive toward girls by making crude sexual comments to them that were designed to demean, humiliate, and embarrass them. So the last part there is him being a jackass in high school. I often witnessed Brett Kavanaugh speak in a demeaning manner about girls in general, as well as specific girls by name. Again, jackass in high school. I also witnessed Brett Kavanaugh behave as a mean drunk on many occasions at these parties. Again, jackass in high school. So far, the only allegation she's made that is actually damaging is the allegation that he was engaged in physically aggressive behavior toward girls without their consent. Guys saying mean stuff about girls when they're in high school is kind of called high school. I've been told by other women that this conduct also occurred during the summer months in Ocean City, Maryland on numerous occasions. I also witnessed such conduct on one occasion in Ocean City, Maryland during Beach Week. And she says, I've reviewed Brett Kavanaugh's recent claim on Fox News regarding his alleged innocence during his high school years and lack of sexual activity. We'll get to that in just a second. This claim is absolutely false and a lie. I witnessed Brett Kavanaugh consistently engage in excessive drinking and inappropriate conduct of a sexual nature with women during the early 1980s. And then here's where she gets to the actual damaging allegation. And it's a little vague, as I'll explain in just a second. Now, there's nothing to suggest that it's non-credible. Again, we have to say whether it's credible or not. She seems like a credible person from the text of the actual claim. She doesn't seem to be a complete crazy person, although we haven't seen her speak out loud yet, so we really don't know. And it is also worthwhile noting that she has not been called to testify in any setting. She is not testifying under oath, as far as I'm aware. And Michael Avenatti, when specifically asked whether she was accusing Brett Kavanaugh of indeed being involved in a gang rape, he demurred. He's not answering the question. Here is the actual accusation. During the years 1981-1982, I became aware of efforts by Mark Judge, Brett Kavanaugh, and others to spike the punch at house parties I attended with drugs and or grain alcohol so as to cause girls to lose their inhibitions and their ability to say no. This caused me to make an effort to purposely avoid the punch at these parties. I witnessed efforts by Mark Judge, Brett Kavanaugh, and others to target particular girls so they could be taken advantage of. It was usually a girl that was especially vulnerable because she was alone at the party or shy. I also witnessed efforts by Mark Judge, Brett Kavanaugh, and others to cause girls to become inebriated or disoriented so they could then be gang raped, this is an actual accusation, in a side room or bedroom by a train of numerous boys. I have a firm recollection of seeing boys lined up outside rooms at many of these parties, waiting for their turn with a girl inside the room. These boys included Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh. So now she's saying that she knows that there was a gang rape train going on, and the line included Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh. So that's an actual accusation. In approximately 1982, I became the victim of one of these gang or train rapes where Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh were present. Now, here's where it gets vague. It's not clear whether she is saying that they were involved in the gang rape or train, or whether they were just at the party, like she was also at the party. So, there were people at the party, apparently. Shortly after the incident, I shared what had transpired with at least two other people. During the incident, I was incapacitated without my consent and unable to fight off the boys raping me. I believe I was drugged using Quaaludes or something similar placed in what I was drinking. So obviously, a pretty terrible story. I'm aware of other witnesses that can attest to the truthfulness of each of the statements above. And then she swore this under penalty of perjury. She's executed this declaration as of yesterday. So the question here is a pretty simple one. Is it true or is it false? Is it true or is it false? She's claiming now that they were at parties where there were dozens of witnesses, where people saw this gang rape train occurring on a regular basis, that she would continue going to these parties on a regular basis, even knowing that these boys were performing a gang rape train in the other room, which is sort of an odd sort of suggestion. And if you went to a party and you saw people performing gang rapes there, would you, at the very least, would you continue going to those parties on the weekend? Seems kind of suspicious. The fact that she went to Michael Avenatti to reveal this particular scenario is also suspicious. Bottom line is, we're going to need more evidence on this. We're going to need some corroborating details. We're going to need to know what the weekends were. We're going to need to know who else was there. She says that she's aware of other witnesses that can attest to the truthfulness of each of the statements above. Who are these other witnesses? We just don't know at this point. We have no idea. So all of this is brand new. We don't have any of the details as of yet. It's not clear. Now, one of the things that's happening here is that Democrats and folks on the left are jumping on Brett Kavanaugh's interview on Fox News last night to claim that Brett Kavanaugh actually was claiming that he is clean as the driven snow, pure as the driven snow, and therefore, if they can find evidence that he went to parties and was drinking, then he is therefore a liar and ought not sit on the Supreme Court. It's this big straw man that's being set up against Brett Kavanaugh. So here's what Brett Kavanaugh actually said. He was on Martha McCallum's show. And he talked about his experiences in high school, and here's what he had to say.
We're talking about an allegation of sexual assault. I've never sexually assaulted anyone. I did not have sexual intercourse or anything close to sexual intercourse in high school or for many years thereafter. And the girls from the schools I went to and I were friends.
So you're saying that through all these years that are in question, you were a virgin?
That's correct.
Never had sexual intercourse with anyone in high school?
Correct.
And through what years in college, since we're probing into your personal life here?
Many years after. I'll leave it at that. Many years after.
Okay, so number one, it's kind of absurd that he's now on TV having to brag about whether he was a virgin in high school. Now, as somebody who thinks that there's nothing wrong with being a virgin in high school or all the way until marriage, I don't have much of a problem with folks saying this, but this is what our political discourse has now come to based on unverified allegations. We're going to get to the unverified nature of Christine Blasey Ford's allegations in just a second. But to finish up with the Kavanaugh interview here, it's being portrayed by the media as though Brett Kavanaugh said that he was, again, as clean and as pure as anyone has ever been in high school. That's not exactly what he said, and I'll explain in just 1 second. But first, let's talk about the quality of your sleep. We're not going to agree on everything, but I think we can all agree we can use more sleep. And you think about a lot of things when you go to sleep. You think about the quality of the light in your room. You think about the quality of the mattress in your room. But do you think about the quality of the sheets that you use? Well, you should, because it does make a huge difference with regard to the kind of sleep that you get. That's why you ought to be using Boll and Branch. Everything Boll and Branch makes, from bedding to blankets, is made from pure 100% organic cotton, which means they start out super soft and they get even softer over time. You can buy directly from them so that you are actually paying direct prices as opposed to paying the middleman. Luxury sheets can cost up to $1,000 in places like in places like Bed Bath & Beyond. But go to a Boll and Branch website and their sheets are going to cost you only a couple of $100. Everybody who tries Boll and Branch sheets loves them, which is why they have thousands of 5-star reviews. I like their sheets so much that after my wife and I tried them out, not only did we buy a few more sets, we actually got rid of all the other sheets in our house because they are indeed that comfortable. 3 U.S. presidents sleep on Boll and Branch sheets. Shipping is free. You can try them for 30 nights. If you don't love them, send them back for a refund, but you're not going to want to send them back, but it's risk-free, so why not try it out? To get you started right now, my listeners can get $50 off your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com, promo code Ben. Go to bollandbranch.com today, again, for $50 off your first set of sheets. That's BOLL and branch.com, promo code Ben, bollandbranch.com, promo code Ben. Go check it out. So here is what Brett Kavanaugh actually said about his life during high school. He says, yes, there were parties, and the drinking age was 18. And yes, the seniors were legal and had beer there. And yes, people might have had too many beers on occasion, and people generally in high school. I think all of us have probably done things we look back on in high school and regret or cringe a bit, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an allegation of sexual assault. I've never sexually assaulted anyone, right? That's when he gets to the part that he was talking about. So McCallum asked him, sir, you're going to be pressed on something you just said about people do things in high school, and you were all drinking. Were there times perhaps when you drank so much? Was there ever a time you drank so much you couldn't remember what happened the night before? And Kavanaugh said, no, that never happened. McCallum said, you never said to anyone, I don't remember anything about last night. And Kavanaugh said, no, that never happened. So the great lie here that is being promulgated is that Brett Kavanaugh is saying that he was completely innocent in high school, that he never drank to excess, that he was never involved in raucous parties or anything like that. But that wasn't the accusation. Remember, the original accusation is that he tried to rape a girl. Right? The original accusation is that he pushed a 15-year-old girl into a room, pulled down her clothes, and tried to rape her, and then stifled her screams with his hand as she tried to cry out. Now we have the second accusation from Avenatti, and it's not even clear at this point what exactly the accusation is, because the woman who's making the claim is basically saying that she was present at parties where gang rapes were occurring, and she saw Brett Kavanaugh in line, and she saw Brett Kavanaugh, I guess, grab and fondle girls, but those girls haven't come forward. And then she's making a claim that she was gang raped at one of these parties, and Brett Kavanaugh was present at the party, but not clear that Brett Kavanaugh is actually involved in the gang rape. So the extent of the claims that she's making is not particularly clear. And you can see that the media are attempting to push the boundaries of the actual accusation. Now the media are moving into the arena of suggesting that Brett Kavanaugh was basically a sloppy drunk. That's the new accusation against him is that he was a sloppy drunk. So they're going to claim that he was a sexual assaulter, and if they can't prove that, they're going to claim that he was a sloppy drunk, and therefore, if he was a sloppy drunk and he lied about it, he shouldn't sit on the Supreme Court. So we're seeing a sort of mission creep with regard to what Democrats are claiming about him, depending on how seriously they end up taking Michael Avenatti's suggestions. Okay, so speaking of that, the Washington Post has a long piece today about Kavanaugh's quote-unquote choir boy image. Now, again, I'm not sure what makes people think that Brett Kavanaugh has claimed for himself a choir boy image. As I just read to you from the transcript of McCallum's show, he is not claiming that he had a choir boy image, right? He is saying that he was drinking to excess at parties. But the Washington Post has a long piece today, an investigative piece about Brett Kavanaugh drank a lot. Okay, drinking a lot in high school, if that were a crime, 90% of the American public would be ineligible for any government job. Really. I mean, the amount of drinking that goes on in high schools across America is exorbitant. It's exorbitant. But the Washington Post has this long piece today. They say on Monday night, Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh said in a nationally televised interview that in his younger years, he was focused on sports, academics, and service projects, but it was his comments about drinking that rankled some Yale University classmates, prompting them to speak out for the first time. Liz Swisher, who described herself as a friend of Kavanaugh in college, said she was shocked that in an interview focused largely on his high school years and allegations of sexual misconduct, he strongly denied drinking to the point of blacking out. Brett was a sloppy drunk, and I know because I drank with him. I watched him drink more than a lot of people. He'd end up slurring his words and stumbling, said Swisher, a Democrat and chief of the Gynecological Oncology Division at the University of Washington School of Medicine. There's no medical way I can say that he was blacked out, but it's not credible for him to say he has had no memory lapses in the nights that he drank to excess. Well, but I don't understand what that means. Like, he said that he wasn't a blackout drunk, and then he says that he remembered what went on. That's completely subjective. I'm not sure exactly how you would claim that he had memory lapses when he claims he didn't have memory lapses. Lynn Brooks, who like Swisher was a college roommate of one of the two women now accusing Kavanaugh of misconduct, said the nominee's comments on Fox did not match the classmate she remembered. He's trying to paint himself as some sort of choir boy, said Brooks, a Republican and former pharmaceutical executive who recalled an encounter with a drunken Kavanaugh at a frat event. You can't lie your way onto the Supreme Court, and with that statement out, he's gone too far. It's about the integrity of that institution. So now the accusation made by the Washington Post and made by these women is that if Brett Kavanaugh looked too clean in that interview, then he shouldn't be on the Supreme Court. So it's no longer sexual assault. It's Brett Kavanaugh looked like a choir boy in that interview, and he wasn't a choir boy back when he was in high school and college. But as I say, in the interview, he said that he went to parties where too much drinking occurred. And he says he got drunk. So I don't know what exactly the accusation is. So now they are trying to basically say that he perjured himself on the basis of all of this. That he perjured himself on the basis of, did you get drunk in high school? That's not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it. And then meanwhile, there's another allegation that they've brought forth, the Democrats have brought forth, and it is indeed an extraordinarily weak allegation. Okay, it's an allegation from the New Yorker. This broke Sunday afternoon. There's an allegation from Ronan Farrow and Jane Mayer over at the New Yorker. And this allegation is basically a nothing. Okay, the claim dates to the 1983-1984 academic school year when Kavanaugh was a freshman at Yale University. According to the New Yorker, the offices of at least 4 Democratic senators have received information about the allegation. At least 2 began investigating it. Senior Republican staffers learned about the allegations last week. The woman at the center of the story is a woman named Deborah Ramirez. She has consistently refused to testify under oath. She's not testifying under oath. She's made clear that she's not testifying under oath. In fact, her own attorney said that she would probably not be testifying under oath. Right? She said her own attorney said that she wasn't convinced of the veracity of her own memories with regard to this particular accusation. This is clip 7. Here's her attorney explaining that she didn't even know whether her own memory of the situation was true, and yet we're supposed to take it seriously.
With that passage of time, she went through those memories, and there were some things that she believed were probably true, but she didn't disclose those because she wasn't completely convinced of their accuracy. So that's the only reason why she did the work with the attorney and spent the 6 days to make sure that that information she did put forward was indeed accurate.
So, in other words, she didn't remember, and then she talked to her attorneys for 6 days and Democratic staffers for 6 days, and then she came forward. A lot of problems with this particular story. Even Ronan Farrow seems uncomfortable that he ran this story in the first place. The woman at the center of that story is a woman named Deborah Ramirez. She's 53. She attended Yale with Kavanaugh. She studied sociology and psychology. The New Yorker contacted Ramirez after learning of her possible involvement in an incident involving Kavanaugh. How did they hear about that? Well, they heard about it from Democrats. And the Democrats referred this woman to the New Yorker. The New Yorker ran with the story. It says, quote, after 6 days of carefully assessing her memories and consulting with her attorney, Ramirez says she felt confident enough of her recollections to say that she remembers Kavanaugh had exposed himself at a drunken dorm party, thrust his genitals in her face, and caused her to touch it without her consent as she pushed it away. And then she says she wants an FBI investigation but won't testify under oath. And Kavanaugh, of course, completely denies the allegation. And a bunch of witnesses say that they don't know what exactly she is talking about. So this allegation is, again, really weak as well. The allegations that have been put forth are unverified. This latest allegation from Avenatti, we're going to have to see whether anybody comes forward to verify it. But right now, all of this looks just like, it looks weak. I got to be honest with you. It looks weak. I don't trust Avenatti. This woman coming forward has not brought any other witnesses or corroborating details, so we're going to have to find out about that. And the fact that all of this is being conjured out of thin air by Democrats makes me a little suspicious of all this. Speaking of which, we're going to show you in 1 second all of the reactions of the political players to all of this. We're going to get to that, and we're going to get to the big hearing that's supposed to happen tomorrow on Capitol Hill if Christine Blasey Ford decides to show up. But first, let's talk about your investment strategy. Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. They strive to make financial services work for everyone, not just for wealthy folks. It's simple and intuitive. It's a clear design with clear data presented in an easy-to-digest way. Folks in our office have tried the Robinhood app. They say that it really looks good. I mean, I've looked at it as well, and it is a very clean-looking app. It does make trading extraordinarily easy and provides you information at the click of a button, touch of a finger. Their cost fee, their structure fee is pretty great. Other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, but Robinhood doesn't charge commission fees. You can trade the stocks and keep all of your profits. They have all these easy-to-understand charts, market data. You can even group by 100 most popular sectors like entertainment or social media. And this teaches you to invest simply by doing, because just put a little money in there and you can play around with it and see how you like to invest. Robinhood is giving my listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint right now to help you build your portfolio. All you have to do is go to shapiro.robinhood.com. That's shapiro.robinhood.com. Go check it out right now, shapiro.robinhood.com. Again, shapiro.robinhood.com. Great app. Go check it out right now. And save money because you're not using any of those other apps. Go check it out, shapiro.robinhood.com. Okay, so the political reaction to all of this continues to play out. There's a big story yesterday that seems a little bit overblown. This is that the Senate Judiciary Committee will vote on Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court on Friday morning, less than 24 hours after Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford, this is the original accuser, appear before the panel to discuss Ford's allegation that Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her more than 30 years ago. Speaking of which, there's an amazing media report out today from Peter Alexander, who's over at NBC News. And Peter Alexander puts out, he says, NBC News has obtained sworn and signed declarations from 4 people who corroborate Christine Blasey Ford's claims of sexual assault against Kavanaugh, sent to the Senate committee. Well, that'd be pretty damning stuff, right? I mean, 4 people corroborating her claims, except none of the 4 declarations actually corroborate her claims. All of the declarations basically say that Christine Blasey Ford told them about it 30 years later. That is not corroboration. If I claim right now on this show that Dianne Feinstein slaughters puppies in her backyard, and then I get signed declarations from the million people who listen to this show saying that they heard me claim that Dianne Feinstein slaughters puppies in her backyard, that is not actually a corroboration of the claim that Dianne Feinstein slaughters puppies in her backyard. You're corroborating the claim that I said it. You're not corroborating that it happened. But the media say that this claim has now been corroborated. And this is the problem with all of these stories. These all should be easily verified and corroborated. And these happened in public settings. These happened at parties. To date, there are 0 witnesses outside of the accusers themselves who have backed up any aspect of any of these stories. Deborah Ramirez's story in The New Yorker No one at any of the parties backs up her story. Apparently, this happened in public. This did not happen in private. Christine Blasey Ford's stories. There is nothing there. There is nothing there that actually has backed up her story, including the witnesses that she herself has named. All of them have denied that anything like this happened. They say they haven't seen anything like this. This new Avenatti accuser says that there are other witnesses. Okay, so where are the other witnesses? Anytime now. Just bring them on up. Bring them on up. I mean, this is amazing. By the way, it is worth noting that if these accusations that are now being brought forth by Avenatti are true, Kavanaugh shouldn't just lose his Supreme Court seat. He should lose his D.C. Circuit Court seat, right? I mean, if he was involved in gang rapes with Quaaludes when he was in his teens, seems to me that dude shouldn't be sitting on any court, let alone the Supreme Court of the United States. But we're going to need some verifying evidence. Supposedly, everybody knew about all of this. Supposedly, this was all clear. So, I mean, this is it's just hard to, honestly, it's hard to buy the Avenatti story. It's hard to buy the Avenatti story because she's saying there are tons of witnesses to gang rape and nobody has come forward yet. I mean, this guy's an absolute sociopathic monster if this is true. Forget Choir Boy. The guy's Hitler if this is true. I mean, these accusations are as bad as they get. But in the end, for Democrats, it's really not about presumption of innocence. Chuck Schumer said as much. Here's the Senate Minority Leader saying that Brett Kavanaugh in his hearing on Thursday is not entitled to a presumption of innocence or guilt. They're just fact-finding. So we shouldn't suggest that he's innocent until proven guilty or innocent until preponderance of the evidence shows otherwise or anything. The burden of proof, according to Chuck Schumer, doesn't exist. There is no burden of proof.
He has the, quote, presumption of innocence?
I agree that that's a criminal trial. What I believe is we ought to get to the bottom and find the facts in the way that the FBI has always done. There's no presumption of innocence or guilt when you have a nominee before you.
Okay, no presumption of innocence or guilt? Well, I mean, the American public should have some presumption of innocence. Otherwise, what are we supposed to do? Just believe every accuser that comes along without any other evidence? I mean, really, I guess that's the suggestion here. He says there's no presumption of innocence or guilt, but there's a presumption of something, right? Because that presumption decides the burden of proof. So in court, when you say somebody is innocent until proven guilty, that means the quote-unquote burden of proof is on the prosecutors to show that the person is guilty. The burden is not on the person being accused to show that they are innocent. The burden lies with one party or the other party. It doesn't lie in between. There's no way to have a situation where there's no presumption of guilt or innocence. That doesn't exist, right? Either you presume that the accusation is true, in which you presume he's guilty, or you presume that the accusation is not true until proven otherwise, in which case you presume that he's innocent. But the idea that there's no presumption either way, and we are just a fact-finding inquiry, like you're the police, kind of hard to credit when Democrats have trotted this out every step of the way as politically as humanly possible. It's frankly, it stinks. I mean, on the part of the Democrats, it just stinks. It just stinks. I mean, it's very difficult to credit any of this. By the way, Brett Kavanaugh has denied Avenatti's accusations already. He did it preemptively in his interview with Martha McCallum. He says, listen, all these accusations that I was involved in a gang rape, just nonsense. He said this on Fox.
Did you ever participate in, or were you ever aware of any gang rape that happened at a party that you attended?
That's totally false and outrageous. Never done any such thing, known about any such thing. When I was in high school, and I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, a Jesuit high school, where I was focused on academics and athletics, going to church every Sunday at Little Flower, working on my service projects, and friendship with my fellow classmates and friendship with girls from the local all-girls Catholic schools.
Okay, so he's denied the accusations that Avenatti is putting forward already, and that's perfectly obvious that he's denying the accusations that have been put forward. But Democrats, again, they're playing a game here where we don't even know where the burden of proof lies. We just don't know. Right? We have no clue where they're even putting the burden of proof, what their specific allegation is, what they have to prove in order for them to knock Kavanaugh out of the box. None of this is clear. And so President Trump, when he comes forward and he says, listen, this seems to me like a con game, I got to agree with the President of the United States. Here's President Trump speaking on this. Normally, I hate when he speaks about stuff like this, but when he's right, he's right. And I think what he says here is basically correct.
This is a con game being played by the Democrats. Also, take a look at the lawyers. These lawyers are the same lawyers that have been fighting for years. They keep fighting. Take a look at the lawyers.
Okay, again, I don't think that there's anything wrong with him saying that, and I think that he's basically right, that this has all been ginned up by Democrats at this point. I mean, look at Kirsten Gillibrand, who basically said that Brett Kavanaugh should be calling for an FBI investigation into himself or he's guilty in some way, which is essentially a Stalinist tactic. Now she's saying Fox News is evil because they're trying to confuse people about Kavanaugh. No, they're trying to say you're going to need to show some proof of something here. But here she is making the claim anyway.
Every time you hear on Fox News, oh, innocent, assume you're innocent, you have to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. They're trying to confuse voters. They're trying to confuse people across this country. That is not what this is about.
No, you are trying to confuse people across this country by not making clear your standard of proof and by not making clear the nature of an accusation that you think should rule somebody out of politics. Again, if the accusation is he got drunk in high school, guilty. He says he got drunk in high school. If the accusation is that he sexually assaulted somebody, I don't know what you're going to be able to do with that. Like, I don't understand what exactly the accusation is. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to figure out exactly what the claim is. Like, really, I'm having a difficult time coming up with what the claim is because Christine Blasey Ford has made a claim. It is not clear to me what exactly the evidence is for that claim. Is it enough to claim that he grabbed a girl and pushed her on a bed and made her, and she screamed, he put a hand over her mouth? Yes. Obviously, that'd be enough to rule him out. Would it be enough to claim he was part of a gang rape train? Yes. Is it enough to claim he was drunk in high school? No. That would clearly not be enough. And yet Democrats keep trying to expand the borders of this particular claim. Now, in a second, we're going to get into all of the details of this hearing that's supposed to take place tomorrow. But first, let's talk about life insurance. So September is National Life Insurance Awareness Month. If you listen to this show a lot, you've heard me talk about how important life insurance is. But here is the thing. 40% of Americans still don't have life insurance, which is foolish because if you plot, your family is basically screwed. So make sure that you go out and get life insurance today. And the best way to do that is by going over to PolicyGenius.com. PolicyGenius is the easy way to get life insurance online. In 2 minutes, you can compare quotes from the top insurers and find the best policy for you. And when you compare quotes, you save money. It's that simple. PolicyGenius has helped over 4 million people shop for insurance. They've placed over $20 billion in coverage. And they don't just make life insurance easy. They also do disability insurance and renter's insurance and health insurance. If you care about it, they can cover it. So if you're looking for a good reason to buy life insurance, I've got 3. It's National Life Insurance Awareness Month. Rates are at a 20-year low, and PolicyGenius makes it easy for you to get the right policy for you. There really is no reason not to have a life insurance policy. This is just basic, responsible adulting. Go to PolicyGenius.com, get those quotes, apply in minutes. You can do the whole thing on your phone right now. PolicyGenius is indeed the easy way to compare and buy life insurance. Go over to PolicyGenius.com and get those quotes and apply in minutes. Alrighty, so we're going to discuss what we can expect at the hearing tomorrow, plus President Trump at the UN and Ted Cruz being chased out of a restaurant. We'll get to all that stuff, but you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com and subscribe. For $9.99 a month, you can get the rest of Daily Wire's shows, right? You can get them all live. You can get the rest of my show live. You can get the rest of Andrew Klavan's show live. You can get the rest of Michael Knowles' show live. Plus, when you subscribe, you also automatically download and have access to our Sunday specials, which are just fabulous. We have an extra question that we ask on the Sunday special you can't get unless you are a subscriber. This week's Sunday special features Cameron Kasky, a Parkland student who was present during the mass shooting and was a member of March for Our Lives. He's now left March for Our Lives. A really interesting interview. I think that you'll enjoy it.
Hey, everyone. I'm Cameron Kasky. These are my tears, and I'm on the Sunday special.
So go check that out. Right now, I think Cameron is a really genuine kid. I think that I'm old enough to call him a kid, which freaks me out. But I think Cameron is a genuine guy trying to search for some better answers for himself and at least have honest conversations. So you're going to want to hear this one. I think that it's worthwhile. Also, go check us out at YouTube or iTunes. Subscribe, leave us a review. We always appreciate it. I don't have my leftist tears hot or cold tumbler, so I hold up my invisible one that I bring with me whenever I'm on the road. This one right here is a $99 subscription tumbler. It is magnificent. It is better than the $9.99 a month subscription because, hey, it's cheaper, and also you get a mug with the powers of invisibility, which is pretty incredible. So go check that out right now. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast in the nation.